Hey guys, SGT Nickel here again, and I'm going to show you now the still on the maintenance, just a basic tune-up of this bicycle. It's taking a little longer. Normally it takes 20 minutes bang on, but I've been talking and showing all my tools, so it took a little longer. So I'm doing part 2 now. So I've gone over the drivetrain. I've gone over sort of the basics of your brakes and how to check them over. I've gone over the bottom bracket right up to the pedals and the cranks. I didn't mention this about the cranks. There's another thing you need to do is you need to grab the base of the bike here, grab the crank, and actually physically try and pull it off the bike back and forth. And if it's wiggling that way, it either needs to be tightened here, or you need to take the cap off and then tighten here, or the square or flanges have worn out. When you have a square, normally we call it ovalized, but you get pitted gears on the spline ones too, and then you end up not with a tight fix, and then you have to actually replace the whole crank. So you do it on the drive side, and you do the same thing on this side. And I'm snug as a bug, so I don't need to worry about that. I did a whole rebuild on this bike. This bike got everything rebuilt a few years ago, and I haven't ridden the bike at all since then. So this bike should be sound. There's a few little things that drift over time because of temperature change and whatnot, so you'll need to check up on those. The drivetrain, the chain, of course, can dry out, so you need to oil that. So anyway, we're going to move up to more of the front end of the bike now. Another thing you want to check out, of course, this is a heavy bike, but that's because they call it the North Shore Hardtail. I don't like back suspension. You lose a lot of power with suspension in general, so I like my front suspension. We're going to check the seat post, and this is a little tighter than it should be, but anyway, you want to make sure you've got a little bit of grease on here. This one is pretty dry, so what I'm going to do is just take off the old stuff. We're going to take our Russ Hayes Preparation H, Russ Hayes Soothing Ointment for Bicycles. This gets a little lewd. So, anyway, we're going to put a little bit of this on your seat post. And what this does is it prevents any moisture from trying to lock in, dropping down, and rusting out your insides. This is an aluminum bike, so rust isn't my problem, but aluminum does oxide, and it weakens over. Aluminum doesn't get any stronger, it only gets weaker. So the more it oxidizes, the more likely you can get cracks in your frame when you do aggressive riding, especially. So that's why it's good to do this. Clean off the top, because any dirt that's on there, you're just going to end up pushing it down. What I like to do now is just take a little bit of this and stick it down. And yes, there are many jokes that could go with this, I'm sure. And there's a lot of dirt, as you can see. Like, this is just, I really haven't done much. My hands are already filthy. So, if you want to get this done in the bike shop, it generally costs, I think, around $30 or so, just for the tune-up. If there's any parts that need replacing, of course, that's plus cost. So, anyway, and labor, usually $5 an hour for labor, I think. It might have gone up back when I was, that's what I was getting. I was getting $8.50 but in the bike shop, but labor, when I was doing bicycle mechanics, it was technically, they charge $5 an hour. So, anyway, when you size a bike up to yourself, this is really the proper spot you want to have it, right about hip level. Just a tiny little bit above your pelvis, like your pelvis bone where your ball socket goes in. You want the seat right there. That's general roadie style. If you're doing free riding and things like that, of course, lower is better. I've seen a lot of modern videos. Everybody's got their seat up, but I find get the seat out of the way, my fancy riding gets better. So I don't keep it all the way anymore because it's just hard on the muscles. I tend to go just a little bit lower, so I can stand on the bike on the seat, and that way if I'm wiping out I can get off it a little easier. So that's why I keep my seat a little lower than normal. So it's just because I do a lot of aggressive riding and things like that, and my posture just likes it there. I don't like to be over the handlebars. I like to be over my back wheel. So anyway, so that's that. Now we get up into the front end. What you do is, this is the headset or head tube right here, and inside is the headset. You've got a the fork stem, which comes up through the headset. Then you have your oh geez, I'm starting to lose my terminology now. It's been so long. This here, I believe, is called your stem. Might be the actual handlebar stem, if I remember right, or handlebar mount. Yeah, I think it's the stem piece. So I'm going to call that the stem piece. And what you do, this one's a unthreaded headset. You have threaded headset. Threaded headset, the stem piece goes down inside. You have a little nut you turn on the top, and that tightens everything. And if your handlebars are offset, you need to loosen that up, reposition your handlebars, and then tighten it back up. With the threadless, it's actually quite different. You'll, of course, when you're doing your whole headset, you can re-grease these. And in fact, because it's been sitting so long, and I have the time, I'm going to quickly do that. So this one's a threadless. It's much different. What you need to do is you back this off all the way first, and that's just a nut, really. It's nothing more. So you take this, and you just release it a little bit. That's all you do. And you do this, do this, just loosen these. That's these two bolts here, and as you can see, this is now loose, but it doesn't come off. What you want to do is you want to take this nut right off. This is this top nut on the very top. There's a little nut, comes off, and now my handlebars will come right off. There, got it off. So that'll just sit down here. And then you got a spacer ring, and I can see a little bit of rust here, so I'm glad I opened this. And then what you do, get it loose. Just shake it around a little bit, and you're going to have to hit this. But you need to tap it with something like a rubber mallet or something that's not going to damage your top. So let me see what I can do here. I'm going to put a rag over here, and I'm going to pick this up. I don't want to hit it too hard because I'll damage it. But see if I can loosen it a little. Use that coneular spacer. It's been a while. But anyway, inside here there are bearings. I might not be able to do this right now for the time I've got. I think I need to put the bike actually in a stand. But in here are bearings that you can check out. And just see if I can do it. But yeah, I don't want to go too hard on this. But in here there are bearings, and you just check them over, make sure that they're clean, and re-grease them, of course. But anyway, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to take a little teeny dab of this. I'm going to put it around the seam. That'll just ensure that no water gets down inside my bearings for now. And I'm going to do a whole other video of that at some other point, of headset overhaul, because I don't think I'm going to have the time for it right now. That's, anyway, not part of the tune-up, it's just part of the adjustments. But I'm showing you what to do if your headset's loose. Now you can adjust this. If this is too high up, this is where you would cut it down. You measure here, and this mount that I have that's sticking up, right up here, you can always cut off. You don't have to put your spacer back in. But I like my height. I used to have a bike with a few spacers in them. They used to come all the way up. That's when I was doing real free ride, things like that. And I could do catwalks quite easily with it like that. So anyway, you just loosen it like that. And now what you do is you're going to crank this sucker on. This guy goes on first. You don't even touch these side ones at all. This is very important when you put it back together. So if you're doing a headset adjustment, so your headset's wiggly, I'm going to show you that once I get this back together, what you're going to do if it's wiggly, because I'm making a wiggly scenario. That's the reason I took it apart. So just going to get loosely done, and then just want to tighten them up. And the best way to do this is you actually get on the other side of the bike and put the bike tire between your wheels, put the wheels between your legs, clamp them down, and actually physically sight it. And I put a skull center of here, as you can see, and that's my little figurehead. He basically becomes the personality of the bike, but also I have a sight line straight down his chin onto the fender here, and that's how I sight it up. So, and then you tighten it. Now if this is too tight, you're going to have a lot of grinding when you try and turn your handlebars. And if it's too loose, I'll show you what happens. So, right now it's too tight. I'll show you why. Pick it up, and I do this. And I can actually feel it grinding. So to loosen that, is you're going to do this. Just back it off, grab your bike, and do this. And then you lift it up and you feel it, and oh, that's much better now. But you're going to need to tighten that again because it's a little loose. But what you also want to do is check this. Now you always use your front brake for this, and you put your hand here, that's on this joint right where it turns, and you rock the bike back and forth, and you shouldn't feel any wiggling there. If you feel wiggling there, your headset's too loose, and then you're going to need to tighten it more. So you have to get that even balance between your two, whether it's too tight or too loose. And for a bicycle, anytime, no matter what it is, what you're working on, it's by far a lot better to have it a tiny bit too tight than it is to have it a little bit too loose. If you have it too loose, all it's going to do is wiggle free and wiggle itself even looser. If it's a little too tight, it'll eventually break itself in and will actually work itself into place and end up working a lot better. So that's just a little hint and a little trick to show you. So anyway, this is all part of the tune-up. You need to make sure the headset's road-worthy. Sorry. And you need to make sure that it's set up right. So I've tightened that up. I'm going to be tightening these dead last. Now I need to do this. Shake it again. And then try it. And that just loosened it up. I can feel that. But it feels good. And I'm grabbing this. I can actually let go of everything, put my hand right around it, grab it. And that feels good. I'm happy with that. So what I do is I come over here again, and I need to sight it. And we're in place. And then you take these and you tighten them. These are these two side screws that hold your stem piece in place. And you don't tighten them as tight as you can, but you want to get them pretty snug. You don't want to strip the bolts. If the bolts start getting rust on them, which these do, just put a little drop of oil inside the little Allen hole. Whoops. And whatever oil you, of course, get on the bike, it's good just to wipe off. Oil's only going to grab more dust, more crud. So, and this is only cosmetics, really. As far as the rust on the bolts go, they're still going to work. I just find that they just last longer. You don't get as much stripping if there's not as much rust in there. It's my own personal preference. When I do a tune-up, I like to give the bike back to the person better than when he gave it to me. The customer's always happy about that. You give them a nice clean bike, they actually feel like they have a brand new bike, and then they're going to enjoy riding it much more. And they'll actually come back to you too, because they'll be like, nobody works on a bike better than so-and-so because they did such a good job. So, just little tricks. And of course, if you work on your own bike, it's going to be always a payoff to you. So, I'm just going to coat a little bit of oil on these bolts. They've been sitting outside, so of course they're going to get a little rusty. All these bolts are for mounting water bottles or other contraptions. I think having 2 water bottles is an excellent idea. But of course, the more you put on your bike is the more weight you're putting to it, and then the more energy you're going to be putting out to ride it. So always keep that in mind. I don't mind the workout. I'm a bit of a pack mule myself, so I like like to load up. I've got a huge trailer for this. I've got videos on that, and in fact, I go hunting with a mountain bike. It's my plan. So